Princess Vela stood near the tall glass window of her flagship. The stars stretched out in front of her like tiny diamonds on black cloth. She had seen this view 1,000 times before. It no longer amazed her. Nothing amazed her anymore. Today was different, though. Today, a small ship from a planet called Earth was coming to meet her. The humans wanted to talk. They wanted peace. Vela found this amusing. The Kalori Empire had conquered 17 star systems. They had defeated species far stronger than humans. What could these weak creatures possibly offer? Her advisor, High Commander Roken, walked up behind her. He was tall and gray-skinned like all Kalori. His eyes were dark and cold. "The human ship has entered our space, Princess," he said. "They will dock in 1 hour." Vela did not turn around. "How many soldiers did they bring?" "None, Princess. They sent only one ship, one envoy, a small team of 5. Vela raised an eyebrow. 5? To negotiate for their entire planet? "They are either very brave or very stupid," Roken said with a thin smile. "Perhaps both," Vela replied. She had read the reports about Earth. It was a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. The humans who lived there were soft and fragile. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no armor, no venom. Their bodies broke easily. They lived short lives compared to Kalori, and yet they had somehow survived on their planet for thousands of years. The scientists called Earth a death world. It was filled with dangerous animals, terrible diseases, extreme temperatures, and natural disasters. Most species would have died out long ago on such a planet. But humans did not die. They adapted. They survived. Vela found this slightly interesting, but she did not expect much from today's meeting. The humans would beg for mercy. They would offer whatever they had, and the Empire would take what it wanted. That was how things always worked. 1 hour later, Vela sat on her throne in the great hall of the flagship. The room was massive. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into shadow. Giant pillars made of black stone lined the walls. Hundreds of Kalori guards stood in perfect rows, their weapons ready. This room was designed to make visitors feel small and afraid. Every species that had come here before had trembled at the sight of it. The doors at the far end opened. Vela watched with mild curiosity as the human delegation walked in. There were 5 of them, 3 men and 2 women. They wore simple gray uniforms, no armor, no weapons that she could see. The one in front caught her attention immediately. He was not tall by Kalori standards, but he walked with a straight back and steady steps. His hair was black and short. His skin was a warm brown color. His eyes were dark and calm. He did not look around the room with fear. He did not stare at the guards with worry. He simply walked forward as if he belonged there. His name, according to the reports, was Kang Teho. He was a former military pilot and now served as Earth's diplomatic envoy. The delegation stopped at the bottom of the steps that led to Vela's throne. According to Kalori custom, visitors were supposed to kneel and lower their heads. They were supposed to wait for the princess to speak first. Taiho did not kneel. Instead, he bowed. It was a respectful bow, but not a deep one. He bent at the waist, kept his eyes forward, and then straightened up again. Then he looked directly into Vela's eyes. The guards shifted nervously. No one looked at a princess directly. It was considered rude and dangerous. Many had been punished for less. But Taiho did not look away. His expression was calm and polite, but there was no fear in it. Vela felt something stir inside her chest. She could not name the feeling. It was unfamiliar. "You do not kneel," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "I mean no disrespect, Princess," Taiho replied. His voice was steady and clear. "On Earth, we bow to show respect. We kneel only to those we serve. I am here as a representative of my people, not as a servant." The guards gripped their weapons tighter. Roken leaned forward, ready to give the order to arrest the human. But Vela raised her hand slightly. Everyone froze. She studied the human with new interest. Most species tried to please the Kalori by following their customs exactly. They were so afraid of making mistakes that they lost all dignity. This human was different. He respected her, but he also respected himself. "You are brave," Vela said slowly, "or perhaps foolish." Taiho smiled. It was a small, warm smile. "Perhaps a little of both, Princess. Humans often are." Vela almost smiled back. Almost. You have come to negotiate for your planet, she said, returning to her cold tone. The Kalori Empire does not usually negotiate. We take what we want. I understand, Taiho said, but I believe there is value in talking before fighting. Perhaps we can find a way that benefits both our peoples. Benefits? Roken interrupted with a harsh laugh. What could humans possibly offer the Kalori Empire? You have no advanced technology, no rare resources, no military strength. You are nothing. Vela expected the human to become angry or afraid at this insult. Instead, Taiho simply turned to look at Roken. You are right, Commander. We do not have those things, but we have something else. And what is that? Roken asked mockingly. Taiho turned back to Vela. We have survived everything our universe has thrown at us. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters. We are still here. We do not give up. We do not stop. We adapt and we grow. That is what we offer. He paused. Partnership with a species that never quits. The room was silent. Vela could feel the confusion from her guards. They had never heard a conquered species speak this way. But Vela was not confused. She was curious. This human was not begging. He was not threatening. He was simply stating facts, calmly and honestly. She leaned back on her throne and studied him for a long moment. You will stay on this ship as our guest, she said finally. We will discuss terms in the coming days. Taiho bowed again. Thank you, Princess. As the guards led the human delegation away, Roken moved closer to Vela. You should have rejected them immediately, he whispered. They are wasting our time. Vela watched Taiho's back as he walked out of the hall. He moved the same way he had come in, calm, steady, unafraid. Perhaps, she said quietly, but I want to see more. Roken frowned. More of what? Vela did not answer. She was not sure herself. All she knew was that this human had surprised her, and Princess Vela had not been surprised in a very long time. That night, Princess Vela made a decision. She wanted to test this human. She wanted to see if his calm behavior was real or just an act. She called her servants and gave them special instructions. The human delegation was to be moved to new quarters. These quarters were in the coldest section of the ship. The temperature there was so low that water would freeze in minutes. Most species could not survive there for more than a few hours without heavy clothing and heating equipment. The humans would be given none of these things. Vela told herself this was a standard test. She had done this to other species before. It was a way to show them who was in control. It was a way to break their spirits before real negotiations began. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was curious. She wanted to see how this Kang Taiho would react. The next morning, she walked to the cold section herself. Roken walked beside her, a satisfied smile on his face. They have been in there for 10 hours, he said. I expect they will be begging for warmth by now. Perhaps some of them are already dead. Vela did not respond. She kept walking. When they reached the quarters, the guard opened the door. A wave of freezing air rushed out. Vela stepped inside, her thick royal robes protecting her from the worst of it. What she saw made her stop. The 5 humans were not dead. They were not crying or begging. They were not even huddled together for warmth like most species would do. Instead, 4 of them were sleeping on the metal beds. They had taken off their outer jackets and used them as blankets. Their breathing was slow and steady, and Taiho was in the middle of the room, moving his body in strange ways. He was bending and stretching. He was jumping lightly on his feet. He was swinging his arms in wide circles. His breath came out as white mist in the cold air, but his movements were fast and controlled. Sweat was forming on his forehead, in freezing temperatures. The human was actually sweating. Vela stared at him with wide eyes. Taiho noticed her and stopped. He bowed slightly, the same respectful but not deep bow from before. Good morning, Princess, he said. His voice was normal. He was not shivering. What are you doing? Vela demanded. Exercise, Taiho replied simply. It is something humans do to keep our bodies warm and strong. When the temperature is cold, we move more. Our bodies create heat from the inside. Roken stepped forward, his eyes narrow with suspicion. Impossible. No species can generate that much internal heat without technology. Taiho smiled. Humans can. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, times when our entire planet was covered in snow and ice. We learned to survive. He gestured to his sleeping teammates. The others are fine too. We took turns staying awake and exercising through the night to keep our blood flowing. It was uncomfortable, but not dangerous. Dr. Una Park, the woman with short hair and glasses, sat up from her bed. She looked tired but not hurt. Honestly, I have had worse camping trips, she said with a small laugh. Vela did not understand the joke, but she understood something else. She had tried to break these humans, and she had failed. She turned and walked out of the room without another word. Roken hurried after her. Princess, we should increase the pressure, he said urgently. We could lower the temperature more. We could remove their food. We could... No, Vela said sharply. Roken fell silent, surprised by her tone. Vela kept walking. Her mind was racing. She had seen something in that room that she had never seen before. A species that did not just survive hardship but seemed almost comfortable with it. When she returned to her private chambers, she called for the science team. She wanted all the data they had on humans. Everything. The scientists arrived within the hour. They brought files and screens and projections. They talked for a long time. What Vela learned made her feel something strange, something close to fear. Humans came from a planet where almost everything tried to kill them. The animals hunted them. The weather attacked them. The diseases invaded their bodies constantly. Even the star that gave them light could burn their skin. And yet humans did not hide. They did not run away to find a safer planet. Instead, they fought back. They hunted the animals that hunted them. They built shelters against the weather. They created medicines to fight the diseases. They made coverings to protect themselves from their own sun. More than that, they deliberately consumed things that were poisonous. Something called caffeine that made their hearts beat faster. Something called alcohol that affected their brains. Something called capsaicin that caused pain in their mouths. They ate these things for fun. The lead scientist, an old Kalori with gray spots on his skin, looked nervous as he delivered his conclusion. Princess, based on our analysis, humans should not exist. Their planet should have killed them millions of years ago. The fact that they survived suggests a level of adaptability that we have not seen in any other species. Are they a threat? Vela asked quietly. The scientist hesitated. Right now, they are technologically inferior to us. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. In a direct war, we would destroy them easily. But, Vela pressed, but if we do not destroy them completely, they will adapt. They will learn. They will grow stronger. And based on their history, they will keep coming back until they win. The room was silent. Vela dismissed the scientists. She sat alone in her chamber for a long time, thinking. She had spent her whole life believing that the Kalori were the greatest species in the galaxy. They were the conquerors. They were the masters. Everyone else was beneath them. But these humans were different. They were not strong like the Kalori. They were not fast or powerful. But they had something that the Kalori did not have. They refused to be broken. Vela stood up and walked to her window. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a tiny blue planet filled with creatures who ate poison for enjoyment and exercised in freezing cold rooms because their bodies knew how to adapt. For the first time in many years, Princess Vela felt uncertain about the future, and she realized with great surprise that she wanted to learn more about these humans, especially the one called Kang Taiho. The one who smiled at her even when she tried to freeze him, the one who was not afraid. She did not understand why she felt this way, but she knew one thing for certain. This situation was becoming much more complicated than she had expected. The days passed slowly on the flagship. Princess Vela had moved the human delegation to normal quarters. She told herself it was because the cold experiment had given her enough information. But the truth was simpler than that. She did not want to hurt them anymore. She found herself watching Taiho more often than she should. During meals, she would glance at him from across the great dining hall. During walks through the ship, she would sometimes change her path to pass by the areas where he liked to spend time. The human had a strange habit of talking to everyone he met, not just important people, but servants, guards, and workers. He would smile at them and ask them questions about their lives. Most Kalori did not know how to react. No one had ever asked them such things before. Vela did not understand this behavior. Why would someone waste time on people who did not matter? On the seventh day, everything changed. It started as a normal afternoon. Vela was in her office reviewing reports about distant territories. The ship was quiet and peaceful. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across every wall. A voice came through the speakers, sharp with panic. Explosion in the lower engineering deck. Fire spreading. All emergency teams respond immediately. Vela jumped to her feet and ran toward the command center. When she arrived, the screen showed chaos. One of the main power systems had exploded. Fire and smoke filled the lower levels. The automatic fire suppression systems were failing. "What happened?" she demanded. "We do not know yet, Princess," an officer replied. "There may have been a fault in the energy core. Rescue teams are on the way, but the fire is blocking the main corridors." Vela watched the screens with growing horror. The explosion had happened near the servant quarters. Many low-ranking Kalori lived there with their families. "Are there casualties?" she asked. The officer hesitated. "We have reports that several workers are trapped, including—" He paused and swallowed hard. "Including children, Princess." Vela felt her hearts turn cold. Kalori children were rare and precious. Every child was important to the future of their species. "Get them out," she ordered. "Now." "We are trying, Princess. But the fire is too strong. The rescue teams cannot get through. They are requesting heavy equipment, but it will take time." Time. Time that those children did not have. Vela stood frozen, watching the flames on the screen. For all her power, she could do nothing. Then a door behind her opened. Taiho walked in with his two teammates, Captain Do-hyun Lee and Dr. Yuna Park. They had heard the alarms and come to see if they could help. "What is happening?" Taiho asked. Vela did not have time to explain properly. "Explosion. Fire. Children trapped. Rescue cannot reach them." Taiho looked at the screens for exactly 3 seconds. Then he turned to his teammates. "Yuna, stay here and help with communications. Do-hyun, you are with me." Before anyone could stop him, Taiho was running out of the command center. "Where is he going?" Roken shouted. "Stop him!" But Vela raised her hand. "No! Let him go!" She did not know why she said it. She did not know what she expected the human to do. But something in his eyes made her trust him. On the screens, she watched as Taiho and Do-hyun ran through the corridors toward the fire. Guards tried to stop them, but they pushed past. They reached a section where smoke filled the air and flames licked the walls. And then Taiho did something that made everyone in the command center stop breathing. He ran into the fire, without armor, without protection, without any special equipment. He just ran straight into the burning corridor as if it was nothing. "He is insane," Rokan whispered, but Vela could not look away. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. The smoke was so thick that the cameras could barely see anything. Then, through the smoke, a figure appeared. It was Taiho. He was carrying 2 small Kalori children in his arms. His uniform was burned and torn. His skin was red and damaged. But he was walking steadily, protecting the children with his own body. Behind him came Do-hyun, carrying a 3rd child. The rescue teams finally reached them with medical equipment. They took the children and rushed them to the medical bay. All 3 were alive, scared and covered in smoke, but alive. The command center erupted in relieved shouts. Officers clapped each other on the back. Some even cried. But Vela did not celebrate. She was already running to the medical bay. When she arrived, she saw something that broke her heart in a way she did not expect. Taiho was sitting on the floor holding one of the children. The little girl was crying, shaking with fear. Her parents had not arrived yet, and Taiho was singing to her. His voice was soft and gentle. The words were in a language Vela did not know, but the melody was beautiful, slow and calming like water flowing over stones. The little girl's crying slowly stopped. She looked up at the human with her big Kalori eyes. Then she wrapped her small arms around his neck and held on tight. Taiho just kept singing, rocking her gently, his burned hands careful not to hurt her. Vela stood in the doorway, unable to move. A nurse tried to approach Taiho to treat his wounds, but he shook his head. "The children first," he said quietly. I can wait. The nurse looked confused but obeyed. Later, after the children were reunited with their families and the fires were put out, Vela found Taiho in the medical bay. His hands were wrapped in white bandages. His face had several small burns. He looked up when she entered and smiled. That same warm smile. "Princess," he said, bowing his head slightly. "Why?" Vela asked. Her voice was harder than she intended. She did not know how to express what she was feeling. "Why did you do that? Those children are not your people. They are Kalori. We are not even allies. You owed them nothing." Taiho looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were tired but kind. "Princess," he said slowly, "where I come from, children are everyone's responsibility. It does not matter what species they are. It does not matter if their parents are my friends or my enemies. A child is a child. They deserve to be protected." He looked down at his bandaged hands. "I would do it again," he said simply. 100 times, 1,000 times. "That is just who we are." Vela stared at him. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in her life, Princess Vela of the Kalori Empire had nothing to say. She turned and walked away, her heart's pounding in her chest. She did not understand these humans. She did not understand Kang Taiho. But she knew with absolute certainty that she wanted to. In the weeks after the fire, everything on the flagship changed. The Kalori crew looked at the humans differently now. Where there had been suspicion and mockery, there was now curiosity and respect. Workers nodded at Taiho when he passed. Guards stepped aside for him without being ordered. The parents of the rescued children sent gifts to the human quarters. Princess Vela noticed all of this. She noticed how the atmosphere on her ship was shifting. She noticed how her own feelings were changing too. She found herself looking forward to meals because Taiho would be there. She started taking longer walks because she might see him in the quarters. When he smiled at her, she felt warmth spread through her chest. These feelings confused her. Kalori were not supposed to feel such things. Emotions were considered weakness. A princess especially was meant to be cold and logical at all times. But when she was near Taiho, she did not feel cold. She felt alive. However, not everyone on the ship shared these feelings. High Commander Roken watched the growing friendship between Vela and the human with dark eyes. He saw it as a threat, not just to the negotiations, but to his own plans. Roken had spent 30 years serving the Kalori Empire. He had fought in countless wars. He had killed enemies without mercy. He believed in the old ways. The strong conquered the weak. That was the natural order. But lately things were changing. Empress Nura, Vela's mother, was growing old. She talked more about peace and less about war. She had sent Vela to handle the human situation, hoping for a diplomatic solution. Roken hated this. He wanted to crush Earth, not make deals with it. He wanted to continue the Empire's expansion, not slow it down. And now this human was making everything worse. He was making the princess soft. He was spreading his dangerous ideas about kindness and cooperation. Roken decided that Taiho had to be eliminated. Late one night, Roken met with a small group of officers who shared his views. They gathered in a secret room in the lower decks. "The human has become a problem," Roken said quietly. "We need to remove him." "How?" one officer asked. "He saved children. The crew loves him now. We cannot just kill him without reason." Roken smiled coldly. "Then we will give them a reason." Over the next few days, Roken's team worked in secret. They created fake documents. They planted false evidence. They built a story that would turn the crew against Taiho. The story was simple. The fire in the engineering deck was not an accident. It was sabotage. And the saboteur was Kang Taiho himself. According to the fake evidence, Taiho had caused the explosion on purpose. He had trapped the children deliberately. Then he had rescued them to gain the trust of the Kalori. It was all part of a plan to get close to Princess Vela and assassinate her. The evidence was convincing. Fake security recordings, false communication logs, forged documents with Earth's government seal. When Rokan presented this evidence to the ship's council, they were shocked. They did not want to believe it, but the proof seemed solid. Princess Vela sat in her chair during the council meeting, feeling like her world was falling apart. "This cannot be true," she said. "I know this human. He is not capable of such things. With respect, Princess, Roken replied smoothly. You have known him for only a few weeks. He is trained in deception. His people sent him here specifically because he is charming and likable. This is how spies work. The other council members nodded slowly. The evidence was in front of them. What could they say? I recommend immediate execution, Roken continued, for the safety of the Empire and for your protection, Princess. Vela wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the fake evidence across the room and demand the truth, but she could not prove anything. She could only feel that something was wrong. I need time to think, she said quietly. Of course, Princess, but the humans should be arrested immediately for your safety. Vela did not argue. She could not. 1 hour later, guards came to the human quarters. Tai-Ho did not resist when they put him in chains. He did not shout or fight. He simply looked at his teammates with calm eyes. Stay strong, he told them. Trust in the truth. It will come out. Captain Do-Hyun Lee tried to stop the guards, but Dr. Yuna Park held him back. Do not make things worse, she whispered. We need to find proof. We need to save him the right way. Tai-Ho nodded at them as the guards led him away. They took him to a dark cell in the bottom of the ship. The walls were thick metal. The door had no windows. He was alone in the darkness. Tai-Ho sat on the cold floor and closed his eyes. He thought about his home on Earth. He thought about his family. He thought about all the people who were counting on him to bring peace. He was not afraid of death. Humans had faced death many times throughout their history. They had learned to accept it. But he was sad. Sad because he had started to believe that the Kalori could change. He had started to believe that Princess Vela could see humans as equals. He had started to believe that they could be friends. Now he would die in a dark cell, accused of crimes he did not commit. That night the cell door opened. Light poured in from the corridor. Vela stood in the doorway. She was alone. No guards, no advisors. Tai-Ho looked up at her but did not stand. His wrists were still chained. Have you come to watch me die? He asked. His voice was tired but not angry. Vela stepped into the cell. The door closed behind her. I came to hear the truth, she said, from you. I did not cause the explosion, Tai-Ho said simply. I did not try to hurt anyone. I saved those children because it was the right thing to do. That is the truth. Vela stared at him. The evidence says otherwise. The evidence is false. How can I know that? Tai-Ho looked into her eyes. His gaze was steady and honest. You cannot know it, Princess. You can only feel it. In your heart, you know who I am. You have seen me. You have talked with me. You know the truth. Vela felt tears forming in her eyes. Kalori rarely cried. It was seen as shameful, but she could not stop them. If you are innocent, she whispered, then someone is lying to me. Someone in my own council. Tai-Ho nodded slowly. Yes. Vela closed her eyes. The weight of the situation pressed down on her. The execution is scheduled for tomorrow morning, she said. I do not know if I can stop it. Tai-Ho smiled. It was a sad smile, but still warm. Then I am grateful for this conversation, Princess. Whatever happens, I want you to know something. He paused. I really hope we could have been friends. Vela's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She turned and left the cell without another word. But as she walked back to her chambers, a fire was growing inside her. Someone had lied to her. Someone had tried to manipulate her. Someone was going to pay. Princess Vela was going to find the truth, no matter what it cost. Vela did not sleep that night. She sat in her private chamber, going through every piece of evidence against Tai-Ho. She read every document. She watched every recording. She studied every detail. Something was wrong. She could feel it, but she could not find the proof. As the first light of the artificial dawn appeared through her window, she made a decision. She would use her highest authority as princess to access restricted files, files that even the council could not see. It was a risk. If Roken found out, he would accuse her of protecting a traitor. But she had no choice. She went to the ship's central computer core. Using her royal codes, she unlocked the deepest level of the security system. She searched for any records related to the explosion. What she found made her blood run cold. The official records showed that the explosion was caused by human sabotage, but the original, unedited records told a different story. The explosion had started in a power relay that was scheduled for maintenance. Maintenance that had been delayed by direct order from High Commander Roken. More than that, the security recordings had been changed. The original footage showed Tai-Ho nowhere near the engineering deck before the explosion. The versions presented to the council were completely fabricated. But the most shocking discovery was hidden in Rokan's personal communication files. For months, Rokan had been planning something terrible. He believed that Empress Nura was too weak to lead the Empire. He believed that the peace negotiations with Earth were a mistake. He wanted war. He wanted conquest. He was planning a coup. Rokan intended to kill Princess Vela and blame it on the humans. This would give him the excuse to destroy Earth and start a new era of expansion. The other officers in his conspiracy would support him, and he would take control of the Empire. Tai-Ho's presence had disrupted his timeline. The human was becoming too popular. He was changing the way people thought. Roken had to remove him quickly before his plans fell apart. Vela sat in front of the computer, shaking with anger and fear. Everything she believed had been a lie. Her trusted advisor, the man who had served her family for 30 years, was a traitor, and an innocent man was about to die for crimes he did not commit. She looked at the time. The execution was scheduled to begin in 1 hour. There was no time to go through proper channels, no time to call a council meeting, no time to present evidence and wait for a verdict. She had to act now. Vela grabbed her weapon and ran toward the holding cells. She moved through the corridors faster than she had ever moved in her life. But she was not fast enough. When she reached Tai-Ho's cell, she found it empty. The guards told her that the prisoner had already been moved to the execution chamber. Vela changed direction and ran. The execution chamber was a large circular room in the center of the ship. It was designed to hold hundreds of witnesses. Today, the seats were filled with officers, guards, and crew members who had come to watch the human spy die. Roken stood on the raised platform in the middle, looking pleased with himself. Tai-Ho knelt beside him, his hands bound, his head held high. Vela burst through the main doors just as Roken was raising his weapon. "Stop!" she screamed. "Stop the execution!" Every head in the room turned toward her. Rokan's smile disappeared. "Princess," he said carefully, "this is not appropriate. The council has already decided." "The council was given false evidence," Vela interrupted. She walked toward the platform, her eyes burning with fury. "I have accessed the original files. I know what you have done, Roken." The room exploded with whispers and gasps. Rokan's face went pale, but he recovered quickly. "I do not know what you are talking about, Princess. Perhaps you are confused. Perhaps the human has manipulated your emotions." "The only one who has manipulated anyone is you," Vela shot back. She held up a small device containing the evidence she had downloaded. "You delayed the maintenance that caused the explosion. You created fake recordings. You have been planning a coup against my mother for months." The whispers grew louder. Officers looked at each other with wide eyes. Roken realized that his plan was falling apart. He had only one option left. "You are a traitor to your own people," he snarled. "You would betray the Empire for this. This human. You are not fit to be a princess." He raised his weapon and pointed it at Vela. "If you will not lead us to glory," he said coldly, "then you will die with your pet human." Time seemed to slow down. Vela saw Roken's finger move toward the trigger. She knew she could not move fast enough to avoid the shot. She closed her eyes, but the shot never came. There was a blur of movement, a crash, a shout of pain. Vela opened her eyes. Tai-Ho was standing in front of her. His chains were broken. Roken was on the ground, his weapon flying across the floor. The human had somehow freed himself and crossed the distance between them in less than a second. He had used a technique that Vela had never seen before, twisting Roken's arm and throwing him off balance without using any weapons. Roken tried to get up, but Tai-Ho was faster. He moved behind the commander and locked his arms in a hold that made movement impossible. "Stay down," Tai-Ho said quietly. His voice was calm but firm. Guards rushed forward, uncertain what to do. They looked at Vela for orders. Vela stepped onto the platform and looked down at Rokan, the man who had lied to her, the man who had tried to kill her, the man who had planned to start a war. "Take him to the cells," she ordered. "He will face trial for treason against the Empire." The guards obeyed. They dragged Rokan away as he shouted curses and threats. The room was silent. Hundreds of eyes watched as Vela turned to face Taiho. The human stood there, his wrists bruised from the chains, his body tense from the fight, but his eyes were soft. "Are you all right, Princess?" he asked. Vela stared at him. After everything she had put him through, after the cold rooms and the accusations and the chains and the execution chamber, his first thought was to ask if she was all right. "Why?" she whispered. The same question she had asked after the fire. "Why did you save me? After everything, why?" Tejo smiled. That same warm, impossible smile. "Because, Princess," he said gently, "humans do not give up on people, even when they give up on us." He extended his hand toward her. It was still bruised and scarred from the fire. The hand that had saved children. The hand that had just saved her. Vela looked at that hand for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and took it. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. A princess of the Kalori Empire, holding hands with a human. It was unheard of. It was impossible. But Vela did not care. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. In the days that followed Rokan's arrest, the entire flagship seemed to breathe easier. The dark cloud that had hung over the crew was gone. People smiled more. They talked more freely. They looked toward the future with hope instead of fear. Rokan and his fellow conspirators were locked away, waiting for transport back to the home world where they would face trial. The evidence against them was overwhelming. There was no doubt about their guilt, but for Princess Vela, the relief was mixed with something else. Confusion, uncertainty, and a powerful need to understand. She needed to understand humans. She needed to understand Taiho. Most of all, she needed to understand herself. So she started spending more time with the human delegation. Not as a princess conducting negotiations, but as a person who wanted to learn. Taiho was a patient teacher. He answered every question she asked, no matter how strange or basic it might seem. He told her about Earth's history, about how humans had fought terrible wars against each other for thousands of years. Wars over land, over resources, over ideas. Millions had died. Entire cities had been destroyed. "We have been our own worst enemies," he admitted. "We have done terrible things to each other." "Then how can you speak of hope?" Vela asked. "How can you believe in peace when your own history is filled with violence?" Taiho thought about this for a moment. "Because we always rebuilt," he said finally. "After every war, we came together again. We learned from our mistakes. We created art and music and literature. We fell in love and raised families. We kept trying to be better, even when we failed." He looked at her with those warm, steady eyes. "Humans are not perfect, Princess. We never will be. But we never stop trying. That is what makes us who we are." Vela found herself thinking about these words long after their conversations ended. One evening, Taiho invited her to his quarters. He said he wanted to show her something special. The room was small and simple. Nothing like her luxurious chambers, but it felt comfortable, warm, human. Taiho gestured for her to sit on a cushion near the window. Then he took out a small device and placed it on the table. "This is something from Earth," he said. "I brought it with me because it reminds me of home." He pressed a button, and music filled the room. Vela had heard music before. The Kalori had their own songs and instruments. But this was different. This was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The sound was made by something called a piano. It started slowly, with single notes falling like drops of rain. Then more notes joined, building and weaving together like streams flowing into a river. The melody was sad and beautiful at the same time. It spoke of loss and longing, of distant memories and fading dreams. But underneath the sadness, there was something else, something hopeful, something that refused to give up. Vela felt her heart tighten. Her breathing became uneven. Her eyes burned. And then, to her complete shock, she began to cry. Not just small tears, deep, heavy sobs that shook her entire body. Tears that she had held inside for centuries without even knowing they were there. She cried for her lonely childhood. She cried for the pressure of being a princess. She cried for all the times she had been forced to be cold and hard when she wanted to be warm and soft. She cried for the parts of herself she had buried so deep she had forgotten they existed. Taiho did not try to stop her. He did not look away or seem uncomfortable. He simply sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his presence, but not touching her without permission. When the music ended and her tears finally slowed, Vela looked up at him with red eyes. "What is this feeling?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What is happening to me?" "We call it being moved," Taiho said gently. "It means that something touched your soul, something real and deep that you had been hiding from." "Kalori do not have soul," Vela said automatically. It was what she had been taught her entire life. Taiho smiled softly. "Maybe you just forgot that you do." Vela stared at him. This simple human, this fragile, short-lived creature from a death world at the edge of the galaxy. He had seen parts of her that no one else had ever seen. He had unlocked doors inside her that she had not even known existed. "How do you do this?" she whispered. "How do you make me feel things I have never felt before?" Taiho was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I do not do anything special, Princess. I just see you. Not the title, not the power, not the mask you wear for the world. I see the person underneath, and that person is beautiful." Vela's heart stopped for a moment. No one had ever called her beautiful before. Not in this way, not meaning her true self rather than her physical appearance. "I do not know what to do with all of this," she admitted. "These feelings are too big, too strange. I have never felt so confused in my life." "That is okay," Taiho said. "You do not have to figure everything out right now. Just let yourself feel. That is enough." He slowly reached out and offered his hand to her. An invitation, not a demand. Vela looked at his hand. The same hand that had saved children from fire. The same hand that had stopped Rokan's weapon. The same hand that had shown her kindness when she deserved none. She took it. His fingers were warm against her cool skin. They sat together in silence, looking out the window at the stars. For a long time, neither of them spoke. There was no need for words. Vela realized something in that quiet moment, something that changed everything. She did not just respect this human. She did not just admire him. She cared for him, deeply, in a way that went beyond alliance or friendship. The thought should have scared her. A princess of the Kalori Empire, developing feelings for a human. It was impossible. It was inappropriate. It went against everything she had been taught. But sitting there in the starlight, holding Taiho's hand, Vela found that she did not care about any of that. For the first time in her life, she felt truly connected to another being. She felt understood. She felt seen. And she was not going to let anyone take that away from her. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. And she was glad. The Galactic Council met once every 10 years. Representatives from all the major species in the galaxy gathered on a massive station at the center of known space. Wars were declared here. Treaties were signed here. The fate of entire worlds was decided in these ancient halls. Today, Princess Vela would speak before the council for the first time. The flagship had traveled for 2 weeks to reach the station. During that time, Vela had prepared her speech 100 times. She had practiced in front of mirrors. She had recited the words until she knew them by heart. But now, standing in the waiting chamber outside the Great Hall, she felt more nervous than she had ever been in her life. "You look worried," Taiho said. He stood beside her, dressed in a formal human suit that Dr. Yuna Park had helped him prepare. "I am about to do something that no Kalori has ever done," Vela replied. "I am about to suggest that we become equals with a species we were supposed to conquer. My mother may support me, or she may disown me. The council may listen, or they may laugh. Everything could go wrong." Taiho nodded. "Yes, it could." Vela looked at him. "That is not very comforting." "I am not trying to comfort you," Taiho said with a small smile. "I am trying to be honest. Yes, this is risky. Yes, there are many ways it could fail, but that does not mean you should not try." He turned to face her fully. "Vela, in the short time I have known you, I have watched you grow in ways I did not think possible. You went from seeing humans as primitive creatures to risking everything to save one. You defied your own counsel to find the truth. You chose what was right over what was easy. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens in there, you have already changed. You have already become something new. That is not nothing. That is everything. Vela felt tears threatening to form again. She had cried more in the past few weeks than in her entire life before meeting Taiho. When did you become so wise? She asked. I have always been this wise, Taiho replied. You just were not paying attention before. Vela laughed, a real, genuine laugh that came from deep inside her. The doors to the Great Hall opened. It was time. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was enormous. Rows of seats rose up on all sides like mountains. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched from above. In the center, a circular platform floated above a bottomless pit of darkness. Vela walked onto the platform alone. This was her moment, her choice. At the far end of the hall, Empress Nora sat on an elevated throne. Her mother's face was unreadable. Vela did not know if she would find support or condemnation there. The High Speaker, an ancient being made of living crystal, called the session to order. Princess Vela of the Kalori Empire, the speaker said, their voice echoing through the hall. You have requested to address the council regarding the human question. The Empire was expected to demand unconditional surrender from Earth. Do you bring us their terms of submission? Vela took a deep breath. No, she said. Her voice was clear and strong. I do not. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I was sent to deal with the humans, Vela continued. I was told they were weak, primitive, beneath us. I expected to return with their surrender in my hand. She paused. I was wrong. The murmurs grew louder. In my time among the humans, I learned things that changed me. I watched a human run into fire without armor to save children who were not his own. I saw courage without weapons. I saw strength without cruelty. I saw hope in the darkest moments. Vela looked up at the countless faces watching her. Humans are not weaker than us. They are different. Their bodies are fragile, but their spirits are unbreakable. They have survived every disaster their universe has thrown at them. They fight among themselves, yet they also create breathtaking beauty. They are flawed, yet they never stop trying to be better. She turned to look at her mother. I came here believing that conquest was the only way, that the strong must rule the weak. That is what I was taught. That is what we have always believed. Her voice dropped to something softer, but it carried through the silent hall. But I have learned that there is another way. Partnership, cooperation, learning from each other instead of destroying each other. The humans have something we have lost. They have hope. They have compassion. They have the courage to love even when facing destruction. Vela straightened her shoulders. The Kalori Empire does not demand Earth's surrender. Instead, I propose something that has never been done before. She let the words hang in the air. I propose an alliance, equal partners, two species walking forward together into the unknown. The hall exploded with noise, shouts of disbelief, cries of outrage. Some species applauded, others protested. The High Speaker called for order, but it took many minutes for the crowd to calm. Finally, Empress Nora raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. The Empress stood from her throne and looked down at her daughter. For a long, terrible moment, Vela did not know what would happen. Then Empress Nora smiled. My daughter speaks with wisdom, the Empress said. I have watched her grow during this mission. I have seen her face challenges that would have broken others. She has proven herself worthy of the crown she will one day wear. She looked out at the council. The Kalori Empire supports this proposal. We will forge an alliance with humanity. The hall erupted again, but this time there was more cheering than protest. Vela felt her heart soar. It had worked. Against all odds, it had worked. She looked toward the entrance of the hall where Taiho was standing with the rest of the human delegation. His face was glowing with joy. He stepped forward onto the platform as a representative of Earth. The two of them stood together in the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by the eyes of the galaxy. On behalf of humanity, Taiho said, his voice steady and proud, we accept this alliance. He bowed to Vela, the same respectful bow he had given on the first day they met, not too deep, not too shallow. Just right. Vela bowed back. The crowd cheered. History was being made. The galaxy was changing. As they walked off the platform together, Vela leaned close to Taiho. "You never expected this, did you?" she asked quietly. "When you first came to my ship, you never imagined it would end like this." Taiho laughed, that warm, wonderful sound that had become so precious to her. "Prince M," he said, "with humans, you should always expect the unexpected." Vela smiled, a real smile, the kind she had forgotten she could make. "I think I am beginning to understand that," she said. They walked out of the great hall side by side. Behind them, the cheers continued. Ahead of them, the stars waited. A new chapter was beginning, for the Kalori Empire, for humanity, for them. And for the first time in her life, Princess Vela could not wait to see what would happen next.